All right, here we go. I'm going to teach you about multiplying integers. You've been multiplying integers since probably what? Second grade, first grade? 3 times 2. When did you guys start doing 3 times 2 and 5 times 4?
First grade.
First grade, second grade maybe? First grade. So you've been doing it this whole time. The only difference is that you've been only multiplying what? Positives, right? Positive 5 times positive 4. You didn't even know there was a difference between positive and negative probably in first grade. So now you're going to be dealing with negatives. It's real simple. I will show you, okay? Look, what is 3 times 4? 12. We all know that that's 12, right? Does that not mean that it's 3 sets of 4? Doesn't 3 times 4 mean 3 sets of 4? Or 4 sets of 3? Right? We all follow that. We all understand that concept. So then 3 times negative 4 means that there are 3 sets of what? Negative 4. 3 sets of negative 4. What's negative 4 plus negative 4 plus negative 4? Negative 12. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's that simple. So positive times a positive is always a positive, right? A positive times a negative is a negative, right? 3 sets of negative 4. Okay? I'll show you our little chart. Let me show you the chart again. Do you remember the chart that we had before where it was plus, plus, equals, plus? We were talking about if you're adding a positive, if the two symbols were touching, it meant that you add. And if you had a plus and a minus touching, it means that you subtract. If you have a minus and a plus touching, she's fine. Pay attention. If you have a minus and a plus touching, what do I do? What about a minus and a minus touching? What do I do? Do you remember that? That same chart can be applied with multiplication. It's just different. When you have this was first grade stuff. When you multiply a positive times a positive, what's your answer? Positive. When you multiply a positive times a negative, what's your answer? Negative. When you have a negative times a positive, what's your answer? If you have a negative times a negative, what's your answer? Positive. So if I have negative 3 times negative 4, what's my answer? Negative 3 times negative 4. The answer is, Jonathan? 12. Just 12, right? A negative times a negative is a positive. A negative times a negative is a positive. Let's try it. Let me give you a few of these. We'll do a little miniature pre-practice quiz. You're doing it right now. So here we go. The first one. Read me that question. 5 times 2. What is 5 times 2? 10. That's the first grade question, right? Number 2. Read me the question, Joy. Perfect. Negative 5 times 3. What did you come up with your answer? It's negative 15. How did you know it was a negative 15? There it is. A negative times a positive is a negative. It's that simple, right? How many of you got negative 15 for number 2? A negative times a positive is a negative. It's that simple. It's something that you're not used to, but you have to get used to it. You're now going to be doing this a lot. Starting now, all next year, all 8th grade year, all freshman year. So, it's the beginning. Is it in my car? Number 3. Read me the question, Morgan. 4 times negative 4. Perfectly read. What did you come up with an answer? Why negative 16? Why? There's a reason. Tell me why. Perfect. Because a positive times a negative is a negative. It's just the rule. This right here is no different than 4 sets of negative 4. You understand what I'm saying? That's what it's saying. It's 4 sets of negative 4. If I have 4 sets of negative 4, then I've got 16 negatives there. Make sense? Number 4, read it to me, Mr. Michael. Negative 8 times negative 2. Read perfectly. What's the answer? 16. Why 16? A negative times a negative is a positive. That's exactly right. How many of you got all 4 of those right? If you can get all 4 of those right, then you're good. That's it. That's the whole thing. That's the entire lesson. I could give you the homework right now. Right? It's that simple. Let's practice a little bit more. Here's the deal. It doesn't matter how big or how ugly the question. All you do is, you can even decide ahead of time. Is my answer going to be positive or negative? Okay, I'm going to give you some questions, and all I want you to do for this quiz I'm about to give you is you tell me if the answer is a positive or a negative, okay? That's it. All I want is for you to tell me with these 5 whether or not the answer is positive or negative.
Is this a quiz?
It's always a quiz.
Okay. Does it count?
What's the difference? You're going to try harder if it counts? All I want is whether or not the answer is positive or negative. That's it. You have 5 seconds. All right, here we go. Number 1, positive or negative, Sladen?
The one negative.
Why?
Because it's a negative and a positive.
Negative times a positive is a negative. Number 2, Kendall?
Positive.
Why?
Because a positive times a positive is a positive.
Because a positive times positive is positive. Jared, number 3.
Positive.
Why?
Because negative times negative is positive.
Negative times negative is positive. Nice. Number 4, Donovan.
Number 4 is negative.
Why is it negative?
Because negative times positive is
Because a negative times a positive is a negative. Exactly right. Number 5 is 9.84 times negative 1/2. You see that? You see how it's like ugly? So I don't care about the answer. What am I looking for? Joy, is the answer positive or negative for number 5? Why? Because it's positive times the negative is negative. How many of you got all 5 right? Does it make sense? Does it make sense? Okay. Let's take a look here. Let's take a look and see if there's anything else that you might possibly need to know. Okay, what about this? They sometimes give you these, and this does happen. I'll give you this question. Negative 2 times negative 3 times negative 4. I'll show you this one. Here we go. What do I have? So read me the question. Dylan, read me this question.
Negative 2 times negative 3 times negative.
Negative 2 times negative 3 times negative 4. Why do they put these in parentheses and not this one? Why does that happen?
It's because they want you to multiply on negative 3 times.
Right. They could have put that there. All this does is just kind of separate, like negative 2 times negative 3 times negative 4 is a little bit tough to read. Does that make sense? It's tough to read. And so they put this here to help you see what they're asking you to do. Okay? So anyway, tell me, can anybody look at this and tell me what is this answer going to be, a positive or a negative? Can you look at that and tell me, Morgan, positive or negative?
Positive.
No. Why is it going to be a negative? Look here, watch. Look. What is a negative times a negative? Positive. Times a negative. What's a positive times a negative? Back to negative. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? When you multiply this here, negative times a negative, that made it a positive, but then when you multiply it by a negative again, it's now a negative. Make sense? Okay. Try this one then. Tell me if it's positive or negative. Morgan, positive or negative? No. Why is it negative? Jonathan, why is it negative? Nope. Where are we at? Tell me exactly what you're talking about. Nope, that's not why. Start on the left. What's this? Read that to me. And then you're going to multiply by negative 2. What does that make it? What is negative 8 times negative 2? Negative times a negative is a negative?
No, I mean, it's 16.
It's a positive 16, right? Negative 8 times negative 2 is a positive 16. Agreed? When I have positive 16 and I multiply it by a negative 2, what happens to it? It was a positive.
It's a negative.
Okay, I'm going to start. Just watch. A negative times a negative is a positive. That positive times this negative makes it a negative. That negative times this positive, still negative. Do you understand? You must go through this step by step, and you'll be fine. Negative times a negative makes it positive. Times negative makes it back negative. That negative times that positive makes it still negative. Do you understand? Try this one. All I care about is whether it's positive or negative. Okay. What answer do you have, Morgan? You're just going to guess right now you didn't have an answer?
No, because I didn't want to guess.
Right. And even guessing it won't help anyway because then I'll ask you why. So you should be able to do this. Michael, what's the answer? Why positive? Because look, because a negative times a positive is a negative. That negative times a negative is a positive. And that positive times a positive is a positive. Does that make sense? Bet you wish you were here for this. You're going to want to watch this tonight for sure. Okay? Any other questions? It's really that simple, people. You just need to pay close attention. A negative times a positive is a negative. A negative times a negative is a positive. And a positive times a positive is a positive. So you just need to take your time, go step by step, and you're fine. Your homework. Hopefully, you have 12 minutes. You should probably get it done now. Your homework is page 536 to 537, 6 to 22 even, and 32 to 35 even. What?
No, we're still
No, one more.